Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, fundamental shift happening right now in the world of e-commerce. We are going to unpack exactly how you can take your Amazon product listings and totally transform them from these overwhelming, exhausting data dumps into high-converting visual stories. So if you've ever felt like your products are just, drowning in a sea of identical competitors, well, stick around because you are in exactly the right place.
Let's start by hitting on the absolute biggest pain point so many sellers are dealing with today. Karina Haro, the founder of Salto Innovation, really hit the nail on the head when she said, if you are leading just with features, you are a commodity. I mean, think about it. Historically, Amazon was basically just a search engine, right? A comparison shopping platform where brands would just duke it out over keywords and bullet points. But today, the landscape has completely shifted. Every single category is just entirely saturated. Literally anyone can level up their specifications. If your only pitch is a laundry list of features, you don't actually have a brand. You just blend right into the background noise.
Okay, let's dive into this a bit deeper. When you just throw raw data at a customer, you're forcing them to do a massive amount of mental heavy lifting. Traditional Amazon listings are failing right now because they make the customer overthink rather than actually helping them make a quick decision. The buyer literally has to sit there, squint at a wall of text, and try to internally translate your specs into real-world benefits. And here's the harsh truth: data simply doesn't sell.
So why exactly is this old-school approach totally falling apart? Well, first off, like we just talked about, categories are completely saturated. Second, when you compete purely on features, your product turns into a commodity. It just becomes this race to the bottom on price. Third, and this is a huge one, advertising on Amazon is just more expensive than ever. You absolutely cannot afford to pay for clicks if your listing isn't actually converting them into buyers. And finally, all that data-heavy text, it creates massive cognitive overload. Customers face so much tension and friction when they're forced to read dense feature lists instead of being visually guided to an obvious yes.
Now, this is exactly where the whole concept of storytelling comes in. But wait, we need to completely reframe what that actually means in this context. Amazon's storytelling is not some long, tear-jerking, emotional brand manifesto. It's not an About Us page meant to entertain people. Storytelling here means structured visual persuasion. It's a highly strategic system specifically designed to cut through all the noise, reduce a shopper's uncertainty, and make buying your product feel like the most obvious choice in the world.
To really get how this works, we can look at some brilliant insights from Donald Miller's TEDx talk on clarifying your message. He explains that you need to enter the customer's story as their guide. Think of it like this. Your customer is Luke Skywalker, and your brand, you're Yoda. Your customer is dealing with cognitive dissonance. They have a problem, they desperately want a solution, but they just don't know how to get there. So as the guide, you use structured visual persuasion to build a cognitive bridge for them, showing them exactly how they can win the day.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an actual strategy. This brings us directly to the framework developed by Salto Innovation, which is known as StorySell. It's this incredibly smart proprietary system that takes all of these deep psychological principles and applies them straight to Amazon conversion best practices. It's broken down into 6 logical steps, perfectly designed to guide a customer from "I have no idea who you are" all the way to "shut up and take my money," and it does it in less than 10 seconds per visual asset.
Step 1 is the hook. Look, on Amazon, attention spans are practically non-existent. That very first touch point absolutely has to be a dominant visual that interrupts their pattern and stops the scroll instantly. If you lead with a boring wall of text, you've already lost them. This visual needs to highlight a direct problem or a really strong desire right out of the gate. Honestly, if the hook fails, the entire narrative just falls apart. Once you've successfully grabbed their attention, you move right into step 2, the problem. Here, you're intentionally building tension. You want to present a recognizable, everyday frustration that makes the buyer stop, breathe a sigh of relief, and go, "Oh man, yes, that happens to me all the time." Like Donald Miller points out, you have to identify what your stakeholders are actually struggling with. By vividly visualizing their specific, non-generic pain point, you instantly validate their experience and keep them hooked.
Next up is step 3, the insight. This step is a total game changer because it's where you completely reframe the buyer's thinking. You shift their perspective by revealing, say, a common mistake they're making or showing them a brand new way to look at their problem. It is a critical psychological pivot because it instantly elevates your brand from being just another random seller to being the ultimate authority, the trusted guide who actually gets it. And only after you've hooked them, clearly defined the problem and provided that key insight, do you finally reach step 4, the solution or the system. This is the big reveal where you introduce your product's unique mechanism. Because of the careful narrative you just built, your product doesn't feel like just another item on a shelf. It appears as the undeniable, totally logical answer to that initial friction they were feeling. It is the cognitive bridge that takes them directly from their pain right to success.
But hey, shoppers are naturally skeptical, right? Which brings us perfectly to step 5, proof. You have to melt away that skepticism by answering their internal objections before they even consciously think of them. And you do this by using incredibly clear visual evidence, hard data, and direct comparisons. When you visually destroy those internal doubts, like, will this actually work for me, or is this really better than the cheaper alternative, you drastically reduce their cognitive load and just accelerate their trust. Finally, we reach step 6, the decision, or the call to action. Closing the sale requires a totally frictionless, risk-free prompt. You've guided them all the way to this point. Now you actually have to prompt the action. This is all about making that final add to cart click feel incredibly safe and completely obvious, cashing in on all the trust you've systematically built over those previous 5 steps.
Now, what's really interesting about this entire framework is how beautifully it all comes together into one unified, seamless narrative flow. Hook, problem, insight, system, proof, decision. It perfectly mirrors what Donald Miller calls providing the hero with a simple plan. By laying out this exact sequence in your main listing images in your A+ content, you are basically holding the customer's hand, building a solid bridge of trust, and guiding them straight to a win.
And honestly, the most exciting part? This isn't just nice-sounding theory. It generates massive, highly measurable results. When brands actually implement this visual-first narrative structure, they typically see a conversion rate lift of anywhere from 10 to 40%. By reducing the time it takes for a customer to figure it out and purchase, and by cutting down the bounce rate, you are directly impacting your bottom line in a way that goes way beyond simple vanity metrics.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about in the real world. Let's consider a brand called Tofuture. If you look at their original old-school listing, it's just incredibly text-heavy, relying on giant paragraphs just to explain how a tofu press works. I mean, it's exhausting just looking at it. But their updated approach applies the StorySell framework flawlessly. It leads with strong, dominant visuals, very clearly shows the transformation of the tofu before and after pressing, highlights exactly how easy it is to store, and provides instant visual proof. It drastically reduces bounce rates and time to purchase simply because the value is instantly, undeniably obvious.
At the end of the day, the ultimate goal of doing all this is to completely stop competing on price. When you create this level of clarity, customers are not going to just compare your product based on a $2 or $3 difference. Plus, by running continuous visual experiments, testing different hooks and angles based on this very framework, you just keep answering customer objections before they even arise. And you elevate your brain entirely out of those exhausting commodity price wars.
So if you are ready to stop making your customers overthink and want to start actually guiding them to a totally frictionless purchase, you can absolutely apply this exact methodology to your own brand. Salto Innovation actually offers a highly specialized audit to help you implement these 6 specific steps. You can deliver that flawless, frictionless close to your own buyers by requesting an audit right now over at saltoinnovation.com/storysell-audit.
I want to leave you with one absolutely crucial thought about where e-commerce is heading. AI tools are making it incredibly easy to just generate images and write copy based on basic industry best practices, which means very soon, pretty much every single listing on Amazon is going to look completely optimized and practically identical. In a world like that, having the absolute best narrative is going to be your only real differentiator. So you have to ask yourself, as AI completely levels the playing field, will your customers decide faster on your listing, or will they just buy from the competitor who actually made the decision obvious? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.